Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Lucid, and we are back with another couple of turns with the Rlyeh. So, yeah, last episode, if you recall, we were on top of Oceania's capital, and we were considering, dreaming of taking a fight against them. However, our better senses prevailed, and we decided to run like cowards. So, yeah, we get to see their full script. We get to see where we right to run. Did they actually have big water elementals in this battle here? Because Oceania does write out to fight on their capital, as they should have. First, we're going to look at, we did dark knowledge here, and we found 2 death sites. Very good to get these early, because if you're a little unlucky with site searching death early, when you're doing remote site searching, you really need some base income. And if you strike out for your first few provinces, it can be pretty bad because you don't really have gems to power your remote site searching anymore. So it's really good we got these. And death is super important for us to get because it's going to give us access to darkness and stuff later. So super duper good that we got that. And then we found a magic site here, a Mercury Pond. This is a 2 water site. And then we found a coral garden here, which is a 1 nature site. So I'll show you the Mercury Pond. This is in the cave system here. So our gem income, we'll take a quick review of that before we get into the battles. We're at 1 air, which is nice. That's from this land province that we took over here near Rlyeh. We've got 6 water income, which is good, but not amazing. We've got 3 earth income, which is pretty solid for us right now. We'd of course like to have it higher, but this is enough earth income. We can do a lot of the things we're going to need to do. Like we're not going to have, we're not going to be controlling earth like global enchantments, but we can, make some armor here and there. We can cast earth spells and combat and stuff. So that's really good. We got 10 pearls, which is quite nice. And we've got 3 death income, 5 nature, and 1 glamour. I'd really, really, really like to get more glamour income. That's something we need to really think about how we're going to do that better. Part of the problem with getting glamour is that the end of the rainbow spell, which I think is the only one that... Where's the rainbow? Here it is. So this one can only target friendly provinces, cannot be cast underwater, and cannot target underwater provinces. So we're going to have a real trouble, I guess, site searching underwater. And it also takes Glamour 2 to cast it. So it's going to be really tricky for us to take full advantage of this spell. We can use it on some of our land provinces. Okay. So now on to the battles. So Oceania does ride out against us. And they've got this... The setup seems to have changed a bit. They've even farther forward positioned their mages. If you were to look at this as the like battle tactics layout thing, they've got these guys at the very front. And then they put a line of these guys also at the very front. And then they put these guys behind them. So basically the idea is they want to have as little as possible time for buffing, right? And they've got a tremendous number of mages here. And this is what they need to bring. They really shouldn't skimp. Like if they brought half the number of mages because they were trying to save, then I would have, and I knew they were going to do that, I would have tried to take the fight here. They did get a little unlucky with getting some of these water elementals trapped behind their guys. That is a concern. And we did have a gem bait squad, so we get to see their full script. So yeah, basically we gem baited them. And we wasted a bunch of mage turns. All for the low, low price of an Illithid Lord and 9 meteorite guards. This guy did returning to go home. So I'll show you how many gems we burned. So basically it's 6, 7, and then 10, 13... 15. It's 15 commanders with 2 gems each. Now, this is, I think, a misplay. I don't know why they put this number of gems on, because basically the way this works is if you take any guy and they're water 2, they'll become water 3 when they do summon water power. So a water 3 can use 1 gem to make 1 water elemental, or 3 gems to make 2 water elementals. 2 gems still only makes 1. So the fact that he put 2 gems on them is a bit weird. But yeah, and then here's our guy. He's going to be doing Power the Spheres and returning, but he was important for the gem burn. They could dodge this by putting water elementals later in their script. This doesn't this is actually kind of a big problem, though, because what they want is they want the water elementals to make contact. So the water elementals can wade through these guys, so that's okay if these guys are a bit out in front. But they can't wade through these guys. They're too big. So if these guys get in front of the water elementals, they can be blocked. The other thing is they really don't want these, like if they have too many of their actual troops in contact with my army, then if I kill their troops, we can HP route the army, and then the water elementals will dissolve. So they really do want, and also they want to win this. Okay, if you're Oceania, you actually still have a very small chance at winning the whole underwater war. It's like becoming vanishingly small now, especially with this gym bait. But if they were to kill a major army, and then they go and they siege a fort, and then they take that fort, they could be well on their way towards winning. Especially if they have something that, like, I can't use my god against, and I can't... Right now, my troops are spread out, trying to fight Yis and them. So if they can take some major wins before I'm able to consolidate my troops, like, which will happen after Yis dies, after we storm the Yisian capital, then I could be in trouble. So... yeah, that's basically that. Yeah, oh, I remember what I was saying now. So because they still have a vanishingly small chance of actually winning the underwater brawl, and if they win the underwater brawl, they have a reasonable chance of winning the actual game. The game would need to go pretty late for them to come back from this small of a position now. But because of that, they still, and just in general, they want to take very few losses. And so the way to minimize attrition is not only to have I think the way to maximize your chance of winning the fight is to have the water elementals on the front line, but that also is the way that minimizes attrition. Sometimes there's a trade-off, like, oh, you could, guarantee you're going to win the fight, but then you'll take more losses. In this case, I think they go together. So yeah, this would have absolutely ruined our army if we had stayed on their cap. I went and did some testing just because I have a test thing set up with the bless and all this. And if you remember, I think we showed it in last episode. There's basically nothing that I could figure out. And I didn't try very hard. I just was like, I saw it and I was like, yeah, we're not going to, talk our way out of this one, as it were. Oh, this actually is kind of interesting. Look how they're trickling in here. And these guys end up kind of forming a block. So some of them get trapped behind. So actually... I think they should probably split up their mages a bit more. Like, they're a bit too clumped together, and they're causing this, like, bottleneck. Because actually, what would happen here is, like, if our troops were right here, well, we'll actually see what happens. Because these water elementals are slow. And these guys are not buffed up. They've spent all their mage turns on doing evocations, like Water Strike, and on summoning water elementals. So there's no buffs on the troops. So we would ruin these troops if we had buffs on our guys. Okay, so what would happen is, like, pretend these were our guys right here, right? So we make contact. We're going to have a few turns, like maybe 1 or 2 turns of just fighting these guys if we were to take this fight. It went better in my test for them because the water elementals actually made proper contact. But, like, there's actually a small chance we could have taken this fight just because of kind of, I don't want to call this poorly scripted because it's well scripted, but just the log jam, the traffic jam that ended up happening. So, which you could avoid through some scripting finesse. But yeah, so basically because of that, there's a small chance we actually could have routed the army before. The important things are, you'll notice, well, we're not going to see. The water elementals, like I said, won't go through the cavalry. So the cavalry, depending on how they bunch up, they might actually form like a block where they could keep the water elementals from getting to our troops. Wherever the water elementals, especially in mass, make contact with our troops, we're in deep, deep trouble, though. So, but that was good. We burnt 30 gems. It cost us 3 pearls and then these guys. And we confirmed what we suspected, which was that they had Conjuration 5. Now, if we look at Oceania, we also raided a bunch of other places. We moved the main army here. And there was a chance, by the way, because his army was here. He could have Jedi move intercepted me here. But I think the odds of him doing that move were going to be vanishingly small. Because there was every indication I might want to take his capital. And I had moved out. Like, this wasn't, if this was just like a scales army, or not scales, like a troop army without mages, then you might be like, oh, he's clearly not going to fight my main army with all my mages. That might be what Oceania thinks. But since I had brought a lot of mages, I really don't want to waste mage turns, right? Like, I really don't want to have all these mages going around bouncing off of forts. That's not very fun. So it's very reasonable to think I would want to take a fight. I did want to take a fight. I was expecting to take a fight. I was thinking I would do better against water elementals than I would have. So I just had to actually see how we fared against water elementals. And I mean, we could kill 10 water elementals with this army without too much of a problem. But we can't kill 10 water elementals plus his whole army with this. So in many ways, this is a very good development for us. It would have been much better if we could have killed this, but I just didn't have a way to do it. And if you don't have a way to do it, then don't do it. So let's see if there's anything else we saw this. This was us going on his other fort. And then, oh, so this is the storming of this land fort. Okay, so this guy has done personal iron skin on himself. So he's got a fair amount of protection. And then they body ethereal themselves too, which is quite nice. Because I was really worried about losing a mage here. Now, we didn't get many of the meteorite guard. This also is kind of interesting. Let me show you this. I don't know if this is a bug. Like, what the fuck is this? They've got a bunch of archers. This is not his units. Like, Yis didn't put these archers here. This is part of the PD. Why does Yis have indie troops manning the wall? Like, this isn't a Yissian troop. And I guess Yis doesn't get archers. So maybe that makes sense. But then they fill the gate. This must be a bug. This should be melee units. Right? Like, am I crazy? This probably is a bug. I'll ask about it. Maybe in the beta. Pretty sure this is a bug. I can go back and check and see. Well, no, this squad didn't exist in Dominions 5. Yeah. But what's interesting is these guys, they hold the gate for a second, and then I think they try to get in shooting range of these guys, because they did get one small volley off before they got tied up in melee, I believe. So now that middle squad is routed. Now my Illithids are going to come run in. And they make quick work of them. Only lose 3. I put 3 Lobo Guard up to help distract. There's a Lobo Guard here, here, and here. And they do distract some of the archer fire here at the beginning. Which is good, because I really don't want those archers plinking my mages. So, they did their job. You don't want to bring too many Lobo Guard, you'll rout your army, especially when it's this small. So yeah, that was nice. We have taken the Yissian fort at Hergendorf. So that's really nice. We're going to build a lab here, start making Star Children. So in these forts, you can make Star Children, just as a reminder, which are really great units. They're assassins. They're a little expensive. They're not super efficient researchers, especially without magic scales. And they don't have the slave tag, so they're not lower upkeep. But they have a nice hit point pool and better morale than slave mages and stuff. So they're really good. So we'll be making them. There's not really any troops we want to make here, which is one of the reasons we need a lot of underwater forts. But importantly, it's also just a super high income place. So it'll be really nice to, get the little bit of unrest out of here, and then $230 a turn is certainly a lot of money for us. Okay, so what else happened? Misfortune 2. Their Triton's preparing for a large-scale attack. Fortunately, this is one of the provinces we have 41 PD in, so I won't worry too much about that. We got a really nice event here. We got a bunch of gems and gold. A layer of the sea serpent has been found. And then, yes, the walls are critically damaged. I was actually thinking we would pop them this turn. So I'm a little surprised we didn't. It must just be hanging on by a thread. But I also haven't been keeping any kind of meticulous math as to how many turns we've been on there with exactly how much siege strength. So it's more of like a guess. But I think it was critically damaged last turn too. So, you know, a little sad. We've started to destroy the walls in Lake Vastness. The walls are severely damaged. So that's here. And yeah, that's basically, we had a slave mage. I think that was the guy in the cave. Yeah. The guy who made this lab and made it so we could get these guys here. Passed away. Okay, so there's a few things to talk about. We hit Conjuration 5 this turn. Not a surprise. We've been talking about it for a while. This is important because this means we actually can fight the Doomstack reliably now. But I need to kind of gather my mages and stuff. So yeah, we can summon water elementals. So that's the main thing. We can also contact naiads, which is kind of fun. This will be an activity we put some water gems on only after Oceania is dead. But something we are not waiting to spend our water gems on, which are going to be very precious for winning the war against Oceania. So this is in some ways a greedy move, is we are still going to be summoning a voice or casting Voice of Tiamat. And if you see all these little beams coming out, that is all of our Voice of Tiamat casting. So we've got a couple going here. We've got a couple going here. We've got a guy casting it here, a guy casting it here. I think in total we cast it 7 times. And I think we're also casting Dark Knowledge twice. I think I changed this to use this last Death Gem and have this guy cast it somewhere. So a bunch of Voice of Tiamat. Now, this is Middle Age. And Middle Age has a middle amount of gem income. If it were Early Age, we could expect maybe a really nice haul. In Late Age, we would prepare ourselves for disappointment. In Middle Age, I don't know what to think. So Voice of Tiamat's kind of an interesting thing because it's expensive. A lot of the other things like Voice of Apsu, where you're site searching just for water, it's only 2 water gems. It's pretty cheap. Voice of Tiamat costs 8 gems, but you're site searching for 4 paths. In our case, though, we're really kind of only site searching for 3. Because a lot of the provinces we're casting it on are safe core provinces because those are much less likely to be raided from us. So we're going to get a higher % of the gems. So anyway, but a lot of these already have like a little bit of earth site search like this one, or pretty much all of them have some water site search. So there's a chance we find a water site we missed, but mostly we'll be finding other things. And so that's another reason this is greedy, because considering the provinces we're casting on have already been searched by a water mage, then what we're really doing when we cast all these Voice of Tiamat is that we're taking 8 water gems and we're turning it into a chance at other type of gems per turn, which we need to do, but it doesn't help us win the war against Oceania at all. This is 100% a greed move, but I think we have them pinned in enough. I'm okay doing greedy things. So that's the thinking. Yeah. Now, we still haven't popped Yes, as I mentioned. This army, I'm expecting he probably rides out here, but because we haven't popped this fort, he actually has a fair amount of autonomy. Like, he could choose to do whatever he wants with this army. I think the safest move is to take this army and go here. The reason for that is that he would probably win the fight, or certainly win the fight, because my army has basically 4 moves. We can go up, or 5 moves. We can go up, we can go over here, we can go over here, and we can go over here. Of those 5, 2 of them are countered by him moving his army into mine. If I stay still, which is the 5th, or if I move into Oceania, both of those moves get blocked. It's also kind of the obvious move. And if I ran from this fight on his capital, I'll probably run from this fight. So, like, the way I would think about it, if I were playing Oceania, is, hey, this guy's going to run. Where is he going to run to? Hard to say, because there's 3 places I could run to. This is by far and away the safest run location. Right? But there's problems with running here, which is I'm basically taking my army out of the theater, at least for a turn or 2. Right? I'm not threatening the capital. There's a lot I'm not doing. There's no check on the capital, right? He could, like, have his mages research for a turn or 2. So there's problems with this, and there's not a lot of great moves back in. Like, once the army's here, where does it go? You know? Basically, if the army moves up, it's probably going to have to wait for reinforcements from Yis to come back down. Okay, fine. What if it goes over here? This is, I think, the most likely move. So if I were Oceania, there's a very good chance I would have moved my army not into this, but over here. The reason is just this is a super valuable province. It provides water gems, which are really valuable. But in addition, it also can check all of his forts. So it's easy. This is a great position to fork his army from in a way. And if I move here with my whole army, there's actually really what Oceania wants to do is to move into it. So it gives me like a predictable move where I could test different things, like doing an enormous PD dump and having my army behind it. Stuff like that. And PD is actually okay at killing water elementals too. So it's not a crazy idea, I don't think. Yeah. And we still have a fair amount of water gems to hand out to people in this army. So anyway, this is probably the most likely move I would expect the player to make, and probably the move I would try to counter is Oceania. Because of that, I'm going to choose what I think is just sort of a weird move that would be very difficult to predict, which is just moving down. The only reason I would do this move, or counter it as Oceania, is just because I feel like this guy's fucking with me and is trying to not do anything rational. And it's not irrational. There's actually nice silver linings to this move, but there's no obvious reason I would take my whole army and move down here. There's no forts in this direction. It is, I still am checking the capital, which is nice, but, you know, it's not that great of a move. So it's a pretty unlikely move. I think it's pretty safe, and I think it's it's not as safe as pulling out of the theater, but like I still am keeping a lot more pressure on than if I pulled back. The side benefit for me is I also get to potentially come down here and kill the trolls, which would be really nice. And then I also potentially can combine it up with these 20 more Illithid soldiers, which I'm starting to get close to a critical mass. Like, this army's got 62 Illithid soldiers. So we're getting closer to a critical mass. We've got 9 more here. Coming in here, we've got 1 more. Up in Rlyeh, we now have 25, but they're getting joined by another 11. If you look at the total amount we have of Illithid soldiers, we're up at 151. And this is increasing every turn. I'm still making them. They're enormously expensive. The upkeep on these guys is crazy, but they're really, really good. Definitely not something we want to have sitting on our books, I guess, for peacetime too much. Like, if we were going to go into like a real turtle phase, we'd 100% stop production, but they're really nice. Okay. What do we do? Well, here are the moves we're actually making. We are moving these guys down because I think it's unpredictable. It's a very strange move for me to make, and it's going to keep pressure on. We're going to leave behind a guy capable of killing a small army if they send like a small raiding squad. This would kill like 5 or 10 guys pretty easily because we're doing water elementals. But it's also going to gem burn his main army if he brings his army here, because this is also a very likely move for him to do. Staying in the capital is also super likely because he just doesn't have to make a decision now, right? Like, he could just wait and see if I stay, because it's, from his perspective, it's like, okay, the fort's not popped. I'm probably going to move off because I'm scared. Why, if I move off, why waste all my mage turns knocking him off the fort, right? So this also is like a super likely move that he just stays in the capital. So anyway, we're patrolling here, or we're sieging here with this guy, going to kill anybody that kind of comes to knock these guys off the fort. We're moving a small detachment of guys over this way into the darks, which is a deep sea. And yeah, so that'll be good. We have a bunch of Meteorite Guard in here. These guys were actually splitting into 2 armies. Kissing Booth Attendant, who is the guy who won the tournament thing, the arena battle, we're sending him on top of the cap. And this is pretty risky because it's very likely he wants to patrol the cap with at least something, or PD dump or something. You know, because we did get the 25 PD off the cap now, but we'll see. Anyhow, we're going to send these guys just to see if, I think it's pretty unlikely I would take this army and move it back into the cap. That would be a little strange. It wouldn't be dumb, because I think in many ways So I'd mentioned like likely moves for Oceania is moving into here to Lake Vastness to fight me, because that counteracts both moves where I stay here and where I move into Oceania. But like I said, it's pretty unlikely if I dodged him, I'm going to want to like, this is where we get to like really weird mind games, right? Because like if I dodged him, I probably am not going to take a fight. And if I'm not going to take a fight and I'm going to move off, what's the point in me coming over here? I mean, in him coming over here to fight me if I just move and dodge his army. Right? Well, if that's the case, then it might be better to, like, for me to ride back on his cap. Like, if he's not going to come over here, maybe his best move, and it's going to be hard for him to guess, and I might just move back. Like, maybe his best move is just to get some research done. Right? And just patrol his cap with some minimal stuff to keep stupid little raiding squads like this off. Like, that's a pretty reasonable move for Oceania to make. Like, let's just patrol our cap with a little bit of garbage, like maybe 20 guys. And that way, if I send some stupid detachment over here, you know, they'll be able to knock it off. Right? Well, if I thought he was going to do that move, which I think is actually probably the most likely move for Oceania to make, would be just research and do some small patrolling. It would actually be very reasonable for me to take my whole army and send it at their capital. Right? So that becomes, again, a reasonable move in this weird mind game war we're in. So, if that's a reasonable move for me, then it would be reasonable for Oceania to maybe patrol with his whole army to catch me. That would be a very risky move for me to do that, though. Anyway, point is, we're YOLOing these guys into the capital, come what may. The other guys, the guys from Kissing Booth Attendant, are moving up into Baptizer, which is this kelp forest. And very likely we'll put this under siege. There's some things Oceania could do. Their Hierophants can 2-province move if it's all friendly and patrol here. So he could potentially have Hierophants patrol and summon water elementals or stuff with a ton of water gems and kill me. But that's a risk we'll take. Then here, we're setting this up. If he attacks here, we're basically doing communion slaves. And then this guy's going to make sure we gym bait, because my god's going to do communion master returning. And yeah, so that'll be good. But yeah, and we're attacking this. I think I mentioned that before. We're basically putting a ton of pressure on them. We're going to try to keep all their forts locked down. We're going to try to siege all their forts this turn, take all of their provinces, plunder the huts, kill the women and children, you know, the basics of war. So, we got, by the way, this guy who's an Amber Clan mage, and he rolled one of the randoms, which is pretty rare. You have a 20% chance of getting a random, 10% for each, fire and nature. And we got a nature one to start, which is super nice, because I've been sending out slave mages to site search, but I think we're going to send out this guy now. Because, you know, he doesn't research as well as the slave mage, so the opportunity cost isn't as high. And I think we're going to keep making these. Ideally, we want to land another fire random. That would be really nice. Yeah. These guys that had been coming up from our cap are coming here. This guy's coming here to site search. We want to, you know, maybe we get lucky and find another kelp fortress. But these guys, my intention with them is to come up here and hit this, and then try to join up with the main army. You can see we've got another set of Illithids here who are moving up this way. My thought for these guys is maybe we like weave them over here and join up with this army. I probably want to keep them, depending on how, you know, his armies move. I probably want to keep them away from his main army. We really don't want to lose. I'm okay losing Meteorite Guard, but I don't really want to lose Illithid soldiers. The other thing that's important is we already had moved out last turn a lot of the siege chaff for this, expecting that we would take the fort. If we didn't take it, we'd be in a bit of a pickle because the siege chaff would be gone. But that gives us a bit of a move, and there's potentially something really good we set up this turn. And that is, we could potentially move in 200 and something siege chaff here, while at the same time, we take this province and put this under siege, which means he wouldn't then, unless he has a scout, be able to see our siege chaff army here. And it means we could one turn pop this next turn, and if we one turn pop it and he doesn't have his army in an adjacent square, then we basically get this fort for free. So that's something we would really like. It'd be great to get the fort for free. And that will just be another thing to further kind of solidify the stranglehold on Oceania. So, yeah, I think that's mostly it for this turn. I don't think there's too much for us. We'll take a look over here in the Asphodel-Agartha War. So, we're sieging this, or not we're sieging. Asphodel's sieging this to get it back. And we don't see any sign of Agartha yet. So, we don't know what Agartha is bringing, but it's going to be interesting. The word has gotten out this turn, by the way, that like somebody said in the group chat that Rlyeh's eating all the other fish, which is sort of true, sort of not. I mean, it's mostly true, but I wouldn't say we're eating Oceania exactly. More like we're winning the war against them. This is definitely still like a phase in the war where it could swing, and if we like lose our army, then it's very possible we lose infrastructure. Like if this army died, like we make one wrong move with this army, we're immediately the next turn going to lose everything in Oceania's cap circle. And we have a decent chance to like lose the next ring out of provinces pretty shortly thereafter. And that puts us back in like a very grindy state. And that's what I want to keep us out of. But if I were another nation in the game, I would certainly be like, oh yeah, Rlyeh's eating Oceania. I don't think it's nearly that simple, though. I think Oceania still has a ton of bite left. So I think that's about it. I don't think there's too much else to talk about. Our Summoner 3 is going. I think we have... Yeah, we're going to have Summoner 4 pop out next turn. And then I want to have a backup star spawn here, and then we'll switch over to the cap-only ones. In reality, we probably should have these guys being trained outside the fort and then march them in, especially like when we don't need them immediately. But anyway, neither here nor there. Neither here nor there. All right, let's go to my current turn. Okay, this is the current turn, and almost everybody's almost done. It's actually just Jotunheim and Zabalba who aren't finished yet, and they're at war with each other. So I'm assuming they're having a pretty interesting war that's back and forth. Somebody else described their war, somebody in the game I was chatting with, described their war as a death match. Like, they're bitterly entwined, unentangleable, and are fighting to the death, which, knowing Janahito, who is playing Zabalba, Janahito always has cool builds too, so I'd be really interested to know what their build was this game. I really want to play middle-aged Zabalba, but yeah, anyway, it'd be super fun to see. Okay, so here's the thing. We just hit the... Okay, so this turn we are sitting at the slot machine and we are pulling the lever, so we will see what kind of luck we get. So you can see we cast Dark Knowledge twice, Voice of Tiamat 7 times. No sights, never a good way to start. No sights, not a great way to start. No sights. Okay, we're starting to get very worried. And we find a sight. Okay, so this one, Island of Floating Stones. 1 air, 1 earth. Pretty good. We wanted a bit of air income. Next place, we find a boiling current in an underwater volcano. So this is a 2 gem site. This is air and fire. So we gotten 2 air gems. I think we're up to 3 per turn now. Total, we had that one other site. And then with fire. So that's pretty good. The fire is going to be important for like rune smashers for us. Sunken Galley, this is from Voice of Tiamat. So it's just the Death 1 site. Sweetwater Current, this is I think it's a 1 water site. And then that's the end of our luck. So pretty bad on average, I would say. Not horrible, considering water was already mostly site searched. So yeah, you know, it is what it is. I think when you add it all up, we cast 9 different site search spells. And we got 7 gems, which would normally be good, except these site searching spells were Voice of Tiamat, which you expect a little bit more from. So I'd say this is below average haul, but it was not epically bad. So thankful for that. Okay, we have a bunch of battles. I had mentioned we're putting a lot of pressure on Oceania, so we'll see what happens. This is the deeps, I think, that we were attacking. So, or the darks. So that went pretty well. And then we have a battle here in Oceania. This is our small little raiding force that was coming in from this side and raiding in this way from their capital. Turns out they had their whole army patrolling their capital, which is good, because that means they didn't catch us somewhere else. Yeah, they also are doing a ton of webs. You can see there's a bunch of... I'll just watch that again. Watch what happens to our front line. Yeah, they had a lot more webs where that came from, too. Pretty cool, though. And this is where, the reinvigoration in their bliss is kind of nice. And then if they get blood surge going off, which can also be procced from spells, now it's going to be two reinvigoration. So, yeah. I really wish I had gym baited them. We see they fixed the scripting issue where they had 2 gyms on all these mages, so they switched to only 1, and they've reduced the number of mages that have gyms on them. So it's now 3, 6, 9, 11. So it's now 11 mages with gyms instead of 15, and it's only 1 gym per now. Would have still been really nice to gym bait them. So that was the battle in Oceania. And then here's the battle in Baptizer. This was their fort. So we've now put that under siege. And there's a bunch of events, and these are all shit. We got Order 2, I guess, which is kind of nice. Then we got Unrest. Then we got more Unrest and minus pop. Then we got more minus pop. Then we had people steal 12 of our fucking pearls. Can you believe this shit? What the fuck? Stole my fucking pearls? Oh, Yes has been breached. Okay, now I think that we could storm Yes this turn. I think we've got what we need. We have, 4 mages? I think that with the Illithid soldiers will probably kill whatever's in there. However, there's a chance, I think it's very low, but there's a small chance that he's been summoning a ton of shit. And if there's a mountain of garbage inside, we could be in trouble. And we don't want that. So we're going to ping. We've been sitting on this fort for 11 fucking turns. We're going to ping it, see what's inside it before we storm and have to start this whole stupid process over again. So this guy's going in. We're also moving off, now that we've popped it, we are moving off the siege chaff portion of this army. So this is what's currently there, or what's going to be there after this turn. This is what's currently there. You can see there's a bunch more Lobo Guard. So basically, we're taking these guys, which are the Lobo Guard, and we're moving them down this way where we can start putting this fort under siege or start cracking the walls. We've already got this little army, which hopefully will pop the... I have no idea how much PD he has here. Probably none, because there were barbs on top of this a bit ago, and I think he's been pretty broke since then. But, maybe he did a PD dump. If he did the PD dump, we'll definitely lose this little raiding squad, but it'll be good to get our flag planted on it. And this is the siege army, which is going to come down. Now, these guys are not part of the siege army for this fort because they're aquatic. They're instead going to come down, and I'll see if I can't get them killed against Oceania. Because otherwise, they're just going to be upkeep for us. That's not going to be terribly helpful against the land nations. So, yeah, we're bringing them down. Behind, we're just having Illithid soldiers and Meteorite Guard, which are probably going to be what we use to storm the capital. Depending on what's in there, we will either bring only Illithid lords or Illithid lords and Meteorite Guard. I'm not sure. I'm kind of right now leaning, I would like to do only Illithid lords because they're going to be a lot easier to buff. And what I'd like to do is just put all the buffs on them, or just quickness and body ethereal. Body ethereal mostly. And then have them storm. But we'll see what's in here. I don't think there can be anything in here that's going to really matter much against our armies. So I think what do I expect to find? I expect to see 5 to 6 Morbarks, maybe 7, 5 to 10. 5 to 10 Morbarks, 1 to 2 Morgan champions. It's still early for the god to come out. The god could pop out pretty shortly. It's probably an imprisoned god. And what else? Maybe 2 or 3 druids. Possibly some summons. That's what I expect in there. I would feel very confident killing what I just described with the mages present and Illithid lords. But we can see important things like, does he have gems loaded up on the mages? How many? What, all those things. So we're just going to be conservative and ping. And then we'll give Yes the sweet release from this game that they've probably been looking for about 10 turns. To be fair, you'll notice Yes hasn't really done much. Like, there's not a ton of mages in here. He had Barb sitting on the fort. He What Yis could have done is they could have tried to be somewhat of a presence on land, right? Or make me pay a little bit more to take the land forts. But nothing they can, this is important, nothing they can make on land can help them underwater. And this fort was their only other underwater fort. Didn't have a lab in it and stuff. Got put under siege pretty early, like right after they made it. And so was their capital. They had nothing to fight my army off with. So they've been essentially in a checkmate position now for like 10 or 11 turns. And that's one of the reasons this super high wall integrity fort sucks, because it's function to just keep them technically in the game for way longer than they would otherwise need to be. But this is a thing, I mean, this is a bit extreme, but I mean, you do have citadels and stuff in the late age. But I think it's like a game design thing. I don't think having this much wall integrity on your starting capital is really great for the game. I think it'd be better if pretty much all the starting capital things peaked at 11, at 1,000 wall integrity. Or something like that. But anyway, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, it makes sense that there are forts maybe that have higher than that you can get. But it's just a little weird for a capital, because it really slows down the first war. But it's okay. It's not like a major deal. Okay, so what are we doing? We've been through all the events. What are we doing this turn? Well, we're storming Yis, we talked about. We're putting this under siege. Down here, we got this scenario that I was hoping we would get, which is I was successful in raiding this, which is nice because we're cutting off water gems. But it's also nice because we block vision of, assuming he doesn't have scouts, of these guys. What does that mean? It means there's a very good chance we can one turn pop this fort without having his army present in one of these adjacent tiles. And if that happens, we're going to be very happy, because we're going to get this fort for free, and it's going to be something that's going to be very difficult for him to take back. Or not very difficult, but sort of difficult. He'd have to... This is 2 provinces away from the cap. He's going to have to spend 2 turns on the fort to take it. Meanwhile, I can take his capital in two turns. So, yeah. I was thinking about teleporting my god on here, because I could use my god to storm it and not risk losing anything. But then I looked at it and I was like, I've got enough Meteorite Guard and Illithid soldiers, and he doesn't have many mages inside, I don't think. So that it should be okay. There's also a chance I outplay myself. Maybe he sees this coming. If he sees it coming, he could sneak his sirens over here and I wouldn't know. And then like stealth attack them on here, summon a bunch of water elementals, maybe with the Hierophants moving in. There's different moves he could make. Down here, we're going to be taking these guys and just doing a very, very safe move, which is coming down and taking these sea trolls out. It'll be good to start collecting income from them. It would be nice to steal them with like Enslaved Mind. I don't think that's really... We're a good ways away from Thom 6. But Thom 6, I think, is going to be one of our targets. We'll talk about that in a minute. These guys are going to come up here and raid. Of course, raiding a land province, there's potentially archers. And so one of the things we need to be careful of with archers is this little kind of crappy mage getting sniped. So he's going to be doing Personal Iron Skin, Twist Fate, Temper Flesh, and then Body Ethereal. And this will hopefully protect him from archers. There's also a chance we bump somebody. I think this is a lot of guys that should be able to kill small raiders. But if, Satish shows up with 100 elite warriors, we're going to be in trouble. He's making unfrozen. Let's take a look at these. Okay, so these are unfrozen. So they've got these guys. So importantly, they are... Oh, they're not amphibious. Interesting. They have cold power. Huh. I don't really spend a lot of time looking at them. Yeah, they have cold power. They don't have it. I was thinking they were certainly amphibious, so maybe this was a sign they were going to attack me, but I don't think that's the case. This tells me instead that Satis is looking at fighting into Nidavangur. And the reason I think is pretty obvious. Satis doesn't do well in cold shit, and these guys do really well in cold shit because they got cold power. And cold resistance. So that's kind of interesting. Also, by the way, I think Satis... we'll talk about this a little bit. The Satis Nidavangur matchup, because these guys are neighbors. What does this mean for the matchup? So Nidavangur, I think we've seen his bless. Somebody shared it with me. I think it's got righteous wrath and some other things. I think I might have read it out to you in a previous episode, but I've already forgot exactly what it was. I think they had like 10 shock resistance, maybe a little bit of poison resistance, righteous wrath, enchanted blood, something like that. So it's kind of, I think it's an interesting matchup. One thing is these guys have stealthy archers, and these guys, archers, even short bows, are actually pretty solid against elite warriors. So, and Satis is making a ton of elite warriors, and these guys are really, really solid, especially if you can shore up their morale. So, we'll talk about it. So, basically, these elite warriors have not super great protection. They have 10 protection. This is not enough, especially without a shield and no hat, to protect you from archer fire. These guys will die to short bow fire pretty well, like with pretty good efficiency. They'll die. So, sorry, that was my phone if you heard that. So these are kind of spooky. Satis can also do Skelly Spam, Foul Vapors, Quagmire, some other stuff. They also have Poison Slingers. And then they have these guys who are pretty cool too. So Satis has those things. Nidavanger, these guys are the best counter, I think, to Elite Warriors. But Elite Warriors are actually pretty good against these dudes, the Nith-Bathed. Because what's the good thing about Nith-Bathed? They're very killy. They do a ton of damage. They're going to get through protection. Yeah, I mean, Elite Warriors are kind of garbage. You just kind of accept you're going to lose some of them. What do these guys not have? They don't have amazing protection, and their defense is okay, but not great. So versus things like super high protection, like 20, Elite Warriors aren't necessarily great because they're really hard to hit. But things like this, they're going to harass down, because the other part of Elite Warriors is they've got 2 attacks. They've got this bite attack, which is pretty significant damage, and the trident attack, which is huge damage. So basically, a tile of Satis guys are going to have 6 attacks, whereas a tile of these guys only have 3. And with like lucky rolls, you could potentially even get rid of two forms with one elite warrior. So basically, elite warriors are, I think, some of the best scales troops specifically to trade with Nith-Bathed. They're just really good. And, you know, like, if you had scales troops you're spending tons of resources on and stuff, it would feel kind of bad when the Nith-Bathed cut them down, you know, with 1 swing, 1 kill. Versus elite warriors, you don't really care, and you just have this huge army and you kind of mow through them. That said, it's going to depend a ton on the magic and stuff that each of the troops have. And then they're also going to fight less well in the cold. That's the other thing. But Satis has water magic. Satis also has probably #1 research right now. It's my guess. But Nidavanger can have pretty good research too. So very possible they do something like Grip of Winter, or, you know, they might even have Frostfend. They've had Mother Oak up for forever. So, and because of that, they could also be going for like a Gift of Nature's Bounty play, which would be really spooky. So yeah, I think, by the way, I think the power system right now, I'm probably a little bit in position 1. But I feel like Satis and Nidavanger are maybe like the next tier down. And then I feel like Ashdod. So let's talk about Ashdod and Asphodel. They pieced out now. So they went back to original borders. Asphodel is now still fighting Agartha. So Asphodel is now going to have a 1v1 against Agartha, which could be a problem if they win. Agartha has retaken this province, so we're hoping, maybe we get to see a battle here. I definitely don't want to see Agartha lose a battle. I want Agartha to win this war against Asphodel, but I want them to win it slowly. So we'll see. If I sent a message to Agartha asking if they needed help, I wasn't committing any help. I was just seeing if they needed it. Because if they need it, then I might start thinking about trying to that might be how I start framing some of my next moves. Like maybe I take these thrones next, and then we move into try to fight Asphodel. What I do not want is Asphodel getting out of control. This nation just scales really hard, and they can go underwater, so I don't want that happening. But Agartha said, no, I think we got it. Give us a few more turns. We might need it. I'll tell you then. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll just stay in a holding formation. God, the fucking Carrion Furies. These things are horrible. They're so badass. Carrion Furies are so good. So I think that's kind of an update from the diplomacy. I was thinking about like what would be a good next war. And the way I kind of see it is that Satis and Nidavangar are really strong. If these guys fight each other, I probably need to intervene if one of them is winning decisively. Because I think Satis goes like this. Or why do they have swamps down here? I guess Satis attacked this way? So yeah, I think Satis is planning on attacking Nidavangar then. Because I thought they must have attacked this way. But presumably they went down here. So they're probably going to fight Nidavangar. If they fight Nidavangar, I could vulture part of Nidavangar, or I could fight Satis. But if Satis eats all of Nidavangar, then they would by far and away be position 1. Especially since they're probably the research leader right now. Middle-aged Satis is a really strong nation. I forget who's piloting it now. Oh, wait, no, I remember. I just don't know who that player is. Like, they're not a player name I've seen on the forums a lot or anything. But yeah, this is definitely frightening. So if Nidavangar gets eaten, it's gonna be kind of rough. Their starting location is here. This is Nidavangar's cap. And they've taken Eru. So they're like this. And Satis, they took part in some other war too. I'm not exactly sure. I think they might have gotten part of Eru. Maybe this stuff. I think here in the middle column, we know Jotunheim and Alba have been fighting. Who's the other player? Oh, Agartha is the other player in the middle. So Agartha is busy with those two. So yeah, Satis hasn't killed anybody in the middle column. They just sort of have split part of Eru with Nidavangar. And it looks like they're thinking about fighting. But my inclination is actually, if one of them's winning decisively, we might have to intervene. But if it's not like a stomping, my inclination is to sort of let them fight, even if one of them has like a slow victory. Because I think this side of the world is actually much easier to fight for our next war. I was thinking like, okay, like if we were to just push in on this side, I think we can kill Asphodel. I mean, not Asphodel, Ashdod basically as soon as we want to after we put Yes and Oceania down. I just think they can't really use Anakites against us because of Mind Blasters. We can magic duel their cap mages. These guys. And the Astra ones. So then they can't get anti-magic. And yeah, so I think we could win against them. The undead we can deal with pretty efficiently, I think. Yeah, I think that it's going to be a hard war for them to win if we're fighting into them. So that's an option for us. Go after like Ashdod. If we fight Ashdod, we then have to fight to maintain control of the land. And that means we would have to fight the winner of the Jotunheim Zabalba conflict. And yeah, the other thing, this is I think is the main way we lose. I think our main lose condition is that they throne rush. Somebody does, because this map, I don't know why, but it was only put to 6 thrones, which I feel like for a 12-player game you need at least 7. It's literally half of the thrones. So, for example, I'll tell you why I think this is bad. If somebody who me possibly being the biggest player hasn't seen controlled the middle section, they could just take the middle column of thrones and they win. Or anybody in the middle thing, they have nothing to do with me. Maybe I take all the coastal thrones and I win. It just sort of sucks. And the problem is it's going to be pretty hard to block or even have intel on what's happening. Some of the thrones have started getting claimed. We have 2 for Nidavangar. Nidavangar is actually the one I'm sort of most worried about, them throne rushing in a way. Like, because they already have this one and I think maybe this one. But then they could get the rest in reasonably short order. I think I want to have 1 throne on this border, and I need to figure out which one it is. This would be kind of an obvious one. It's right next to a fort that I've got a lab in. There's a bunch of centaur warriors and stuff, but we could probably take it, especially with my god. But I'd need an amulet of the fish. I don't think there's anybody I'm going to be trading an amulet of the fish for. But that would be super nice. I could also like gateway an army over here and then take it. And that would be super good. If I have one of these thrones forted and filled with assassins and a lab so I can gateway in 200 illithids if I want to. That's, by the way, a terrifying thing about fighting Rlyeh. Like, look at this guy. 300 magic leadership, but like normal cap only guys have 170. I can put some command items on them. And then, so like, if you look at this guy, doesn't have a lot of leadership, but I could put like the rat tail. There's a bunch of like ways for me to get this number higher. And then I could gateway around with like 200 meteorite guard or 150 meteorite guard and like 200 illithid lords. And like, if you're going to, let's say we're throne rushing, we're going to storm this fort. And I've got like 8 mages in there, including some slave mages. And I just teleport in the army. Yeah, good luck. So I think that might be one of the main things, is I want to get one of these thrones on this thing forted, like in my control and forted, just so that I can make it less likely somebody over here throne rushes. And this is most likely going to be the candidate, just because it's the only one left. But it does mean if these guys start fighting, I probably need to look at sniping a throne. And that shouldn't be too hard to do. Like if I take this fort from Oceania, then I can look at like magic, I could gateway in an army over here, take this from them. If they're busy fighting statistic, I don't think they could have anything too much to say. They could maybe have like an idol of sorcery, which could do some bullshit, but we're pretty resistant to the idol of sorcery bullshit. Like bone grinding is not really going to be a problem for these guys that much. We can also magic duel it potentially. I can also stop it from doing returning with my god. So we have some options. We'll just have to figure out what we do. But yeah, it's kind of a thing. I kind of was planning on this game going late. Like, I have a very good late game build with my god having high astral and stuff. But I think the throne count is going to kind of make it hard to go late. So our missions, in many ways, is going to be to try to prevent other people from winning so the game can go late. And the way by prevent people from winning, I mean preventing people from cheesing a throne rush, which is sort of what it looks like might happen. But there's a very good chance it does. I think this is a map that's going to be really hard to prevent people from throne rushing on without having too many thrones ourselves. Because like if we have more than 4 thrones, people will probably try to rush from us, like, or probably try to attack us, assuming we're going to throne rush. So we'll have to see. The other thing that's going to be, I think, hard with the game state right now to prevent people from throne rushing is I feel like right now things are sort of balkanized. Like I think this war between Zabalba and Jotunheim is sort of quagmired. It's going to make it hard for them to protect any of these core thrones. So yeah, I'm just basically going to be mad at Darkside Cookies for hosting this with only 6 thrones. 6 out of 12 thrones. Like, throne rushes are just extremely uninteractive with low throne requirements on a map this big. You know, it's just, I'll feel like I wasted my time, basically. Whereas if somebody like conquers the map and conquers me and wins, I won't have felt like I wasted my time. I'll probably have learned a lot from watching somebody wreck me. Anyhow, I think that's it for this turn. I think we talked, I'm moving this guy onto the cap. We're going to see if we can get a gym bait. Moving these guys over here, moving this guy down. We'll be looking to combine. You know, we've got more meteorite guard coming in. And yeah, once I have this, then it's going to be basically a thing of how do I combine armies so that I can fight Oceania and then do it where I'm summoning water elementals too. Because if I get it where, which I can now do reliably, right? So if I get it where I summon water elementals and I combine armies from like the north and the south, he's going to be in trouble. So I think that's basically it. We'll see you guys in the next one. And until then, take care.